Hello and welcome to Country Life Simple. Today we're going to make some bread. Bread has increased in price, as has everything else these days, unfortunately, but bread is one of the things you can make at home quite easily and quite cheap. There's lots of different varieties of bread. There's sourdough bread, there's yeast bread, there's gluten-free bread, there's grain bread, there's white bread, wholemeal, rye, paleo, you name it, it's there. It all depends on what you like to eat and your resources you have available. So normally when I make a good sourdough bread, it can take up to 3 days to make it because it needs to rest a long time because the grains are actually fermenting and the starter sort of rises the bread. So it takes a lot longer to make and it requires a little bit of pre-planning. This morning I ate my last slice of my bread and I wanted to have something for lunch, so I'm just doing some bread in my bread maker. I've got a small bread maker because we're only 2 people. If I have a larger loaf, it becomes dry too quickly and that would just be a waste. So I prefer to just cook it in a small bread tin in the bread maker. The other advantage of a bread maker is that it uses less energy than the oven. I've got a 900 ml oven, so it does take considerable energy to heat it up. I do make bread in the oven if I make something else at the same time. Like last week I made lasagna. I put in a bread. I also put in a cake and dog biscuits. So the oven is well used and I'm not wasting any energy. But heating it up to a high temperature, which most breads do like, just to put the bread in for 45-50 minutes, I feel is sort of a bit of a waste of energy. It often takes the same time to heat the oven up as it does to bake the bread. So the bread maker is a lot quicker and a lot easier. Obviously, they do cost something. If you do not have a bread maker at home at this stage, maybe you can have a look at, and you're interested in making your own bread, have a look at Marketplace or have a look at some sales. But I do like the convenience of it. I did put it away for a while because I said, no, I'm going to make my own bread from hand. And I have a food processor and a stand mixer I use to make the bread, to make the dough, sorry. But it takes a lot more time, and often with work I just do not have that time. I can't stand here for 10 minutes and put dough together. So on busy days, busy weeks, I use the bread maker. On weekends or holidays, or if I do have some time, if work isn't too busy and I can pre-plan, I can put the dough together before I go to work in the morning, and then have it risen by the evening. I come home, I just need to reshape it, can put it in the fridge overnight and then bake it in the morning. I can do all of that if I pre-plan it. But as with most of us, life happens and we get busy and other things come along and the bread is forgotten. And then, especially with the sourdough breads, if you don't put it in the oven or cool it at the right point in time, it's very dependent on temperature, on the outside temperature, then it can fail, and you don't want that. You pay for these ingredients, you want a nice bread, so make sure that you have the time to do it. But a bread maker, I find, is an easy alternative. You basically chuck the ingredients in, put it in the bread maker, and it's done. Obviously, there is, as I said before, lots of different varieties of bread, and I try to make different ones depending on what I feel like. Sometimes I make a white crusty bread, sometimes I make a rye mixture, sometimes I make really dark breads with lots of grain. It just depends on what I feel like. Think about what you normally eat. What's the kind of bread you buy at the supermarket or at the baker, wherever you go? What sort of bread you really like, and then just give it a go. There's some really easy recipes to follow. There's also pre-mixes available if you're really not sure what you're doing. You can buy a pre-mix and basically just put that in together with some water and some yeast, and it will be a beautiful loaf of bread as well. I mix everything myself because I know what I like, and I've made bread for over a decade by myself, so I sort of know what needs to go in and how it needs to look like. And you can experiment. You might have a white loaf and then you would like some sort of grains in it, or some sort of nuts, or some sort of special salt. The other day I made a white, a kind of like a French stick kind of thing, but I used rosemary salt to flavor it, and it had this beautiful taste. It was beautiful with a nice cheese platter and some pickles. It was just great. So there's a lot of different options you can utilize as well. So today we're going to make a German kind of bread, which is called like a, if I translate it, it's like a sun crust. It's a mixed flour bread, so it uses wholemeal, wheat flour and rye flour. And I'm just going to put this together. So I've got my little baking tin here. Let's go. We need 350 grams of water. Here's what I prepared earlier. So I've added all the ingredients in my little bread tin. So this is my bread maker. It's a Panasonic. I quite like it because it makes several things. It has a menu of various different kind of breads it does. So yeast goes in here. If I have nuts or raisins, they go in here. I can also basically net and bake. I can also, if I want to, just net the dough. So the other day I made the French sticks. I actually just netted it in here. But you can also do the same with pizza. And I also have made jam in here. It's not a huge container for jam, but I had blueberries and made some nice blueberry jam or compote you can make in here as well. I also tried yogurt. It does work for yogurt too. In here it has the heating element, and you basically just put this in. You make sure that it's tight, and then you close the lid. And then we put in some yeast. If you do knead the bread by hand or in a stand mixer or something like that, it's a good idea to dissolve the yeast in the water with some sugar. It activates the yeast and it becomes, the bread will rise better. So that's a good tip I can give you if you do want to try it with yeast and don't have a bread maker. So maybe just give it a go, see if you like it, and go from there. But if you want some recipes, let me know down below, and shall post some different recipes. And now let's wait for a few hours until the bread's ready, and then I share the result with you. So the bread has come out of the machine. It's got like a little bit of a hole here where the stirrer is. So this kneads the bread, and I will slice this in the morning, but it's nice and crispy, yummy.